Welcome to a special episode of Sports Vibe. I'm Arnav Sarkar. Pleased to have on special guest today. Goes by CFP Talk Daily on Twitter. Yeah, if you want to introduce yourself to the guests, or the viewers, I should say, please do, and but more about your content, I guess, and then we can start talking about those playoff games.
All right. So I'm CFB Talk Daily on Twitter. Also have a podcast. I have a link tree in the Twitter bio. I'm glad to be on. I really appreciate you having me on. I love to talk Rutgers, and there's not that many of us that follow Rutgers football, so it's always nice to
Yeah,
talk with someone else who follows.
definitely.
Um, I would say that I'm probably I'd say like a nationally cover college football, but I'm also like a certified troll sometimes.
Yeah, I've seen both. Yeah, so I mean, I enjoy doing both myself, to be honest. But yeah, yeah, I definitely enjoy
Yeah,
retweeting a lot of the Rutgers stuff, a lot of the troll stuff. Particularly when if it's like my agendas with Rutgers or sometimes some Big Ten teams too. But yeah, I mean, I guess people probably know me from the podcast. Also I do the radio with WRC Rutgers Sports. I'm trying to call games and stuff. I've been doing that. Productions, doing the WRC crew. So we talk a
Mhm.
lot of Rutgers on there, football and everything else, basketball, even like, all of the Olympic sports. So that's always fun. Writing articles for Sports Radio America. So other thing I do, like a lot of Rutgers pieces, also some national stuff. Been writing about these playoff games, college football in general. Yeah, I mean pretty much sums it up. I'm trying to go into sports journalism ideally. So I'm working towards that. It's one of the things I
Mhm.
wanted to do with the podcast, and trying to grow it a little bit. Definitely having helps to have guests on from time to time and talk about different things. So, but yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to talk about the playoff games. Starting with yeah, I mean, two great ones. I mean, starting, I guess we could start with Michigan, Alabama at the Rose Bowl. That was the one I was really looking forward to. Now I was going for the Tide, but I mean, Michigan played, heck of a game. I mean, both teams really did, but I mean, yeah, do you have any, like, I guess, initial takeaways, and then I can give my analysis on it after that.
Okay, yeah. So my takeaways. So for one, I was probably one of the very few people in America that's not a Michigan fan that wanted Michigan to win this game. Truthfully, I was just tired of seeing Alabama win.
That's
Also, I'm
fair.
a 49ers fan, so I do have a bit of a soft spot for Jim Harbaugh just from like the 49ers days.
Right, makes sense.
Um, uh, it was weird. Michigan. I mean, they had a terrible start to that game.
Very,
First play,
yeah.
almost throwing a pick. I thought it was over then. I thought we were gonna have another blowout. But
Yeah, I
their
thought so
defense
too.
was their defense was incredible though. Yeah, so I'm just happy to see like JJ McCarthy. I don't know if you saw the picture of him last year. When they lost the
Yeah.
game, it was him like standing by himself watching the celebration. So that
Yeah.
was pretty cool to see him get like a be able to get a win.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw him walking around the Rose Bowl after the game, and I mean, say what you want about Michigan, but I've always had respect for JJ McCarthy, and he seems like a very genuine guy, and I definitely respect what they've, I mean, what he's been through, and what like they're saying the stuff about how he kind of cured his own depression, and he's come a long way, and I've always seen
Mhm.
his talent and his potential, and some of those throws he was making, like the one-handed catch off the snap, and then being able to fire the pass to Roman Wilson, that was incredible. I mean, but it was just a game of momentum, really. I mean, like you said, like Michigan they almost threw a pick on the first play, and then they muffed the punt, or Samaj Morgan muffed the punt. So then Alabama goes and scores a touchdown, and then then it seemed like Michigan kind of figured it out, and they definitely, like, their offensive line was definitely, I would say, better, especially considering Seth McLaughlin, who just entered the transfer portal, or is going to, the snapping was
Oh,
terrible, but I mean, yeah, just that really cost them. But I mean, Michigan's offensive line was great. I mean, their scheme was good. They were moving the ball downfield. Blake Corum was getting involved. The running game was good. I mean, so Michigan kind of seized the momentum, but what really amazed me was Michigan's on defense. I mean, they were swarming Milrow, getting pressures, getting sacks. They had 5 sacks in the first half, and then it seemed like they had
mhm.
all the momentum going up 13-7 at halftime. But then in the second half, like, Alabama seemed to kind of figure things out. I mean, well, it was 10-13. It was 13-10 Michigan at halftime. Alabama got a field goal. But in the second half, it seemed like Alabama kind of figured out they kind of knew what to do. The quick passes, finding Isaiah Bond, getting, in the field goal range, getting a touchdown to go ahead, 17-13, and then Michigan was kind of the team that got rattled on offense. They were not able to move the ball even when they had they were able to force a turnover from Milrow. They still weren't able to do anything. Then I thought, okay, Alabama, it's Alabama football. They're gonna, they've kind of figured out what to do. They're gonna be able to win. And then, them trying to get a field goal. They're trying to basically ice the game on a touchdown. They couldn't. Michigan's defense kind of showed up again with a lot of pressure. Basically first field goal, and then that was an impressive drive, though. The one where Michigan took the lead. Another great pass from McCarthy to Wilson,
Mhm.
I think, was the highlight. Also fourth down and two, Michigan able to convert. A great play design there, getting into Corum in open space, and then them able to tie the game. And then Jake Dahl almost fumbled the muffed the punt away, and then muffed the punt, but he was able to
Oh,
recover it on the one, which was just shows how much of a game of inches this really is. So now Michigan's thinking this is
mhm.
after they forced another three now. So now Michigan's thinking, okay, we can they were probably thinking we're gonna try to win the game, but then they decide to just, force overtime, just, play it safe, take a knee, and then yeah, and then overtime. I feel like then once they got to overtime, Michigan had all the momentum, and then I felt like they were gonna win, especially with Blake Corum finding the end zone. Then Alabama, um, you know, I mean they tried. I mean the last play call, like I don't know. It's like I've seen them do that, and like Milrow can burst through the middle, but the blocking wasn't there. The snap was low. That certainly didn't help. And
Mhm.
maybe you say, like, some people, I've seen people say it should have been or it was supposed to be an RPO where you pitch it. I don't really think that's true, but I mean I don't really hate the play call. At the same time, the execution wasn't great. Maybe they could have come up with something better, but I don't know. Just a great football game between both of the teams. Yeah, I mean it was pretty much everything you wanted to see, in a national semifinal game, in the playoff game, and it certainly had a lot of hype, and it definitely lived up to the result.
Yeah, so one of the things I definitely want to talk about was that play from McCarthy where he made the one-handed catch and then threw it down the field. That was incredible
I
athleticism,
know.
and
I've
that was
never
probably
that
like
was
if
insane.
like and like the fact that the game ended so close, like the fact that that was probably like a game-changing play was even crazier. Like that was just, and then I think Michigan did a really good job, like you said, about getting Corum open. Like I know that the one play they stole from the Dolphins, I saw someone put that on Twitter, and like just Corum and the other guy were wide open. Like it was just great
Yeah, the
scheme by
fourth
Michigan.
down. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I guess those are like my takeaways of Michigan, Alabama. I mean, it was certainly a game of momentum shifts. It felt like Michigan at first was going to lose, and then it felt like they kind of settled in. Then it felt like they were going to win.
Mhm.
And Alabama wasn't even really going to even have a chance, and then they settled in. Then it kind of felt like Alabama was going to win. Michigan was going to not be able to overcome their playoff demons, and they come and, put together a masterful drive. And they see some momentum. Then it was kind of like Michigan's going to take over, and that Michigan defense, man, it's like, it's just hard to do anything against. I mean, Big Ten teams have trouble running the ball on them, and even like run oriented teams. And then it's like the pass, you can't hold on to the ball too long because, like they'll force sacks. It's like you have to get the ball out quickly, which I thought Alabama did a good job of doing with those
Mhm.
screen passes, getting it to McClellan with the run game. Even like the long pass to Bond. But I mean, I feel like Alabama figured out what to do, but Michigan's defense was just a lot. I feel like Michigan had the advantage. They played a better game on offense and defense, where Alabama really was able to get into the game is because Michigan made mistakes and Alabama capitalized off them. And Michigan missed a field
Mhm.
goal, missed an extra point, left a punt, left another punt that they saved, and that's really the only reason I think Alabama was even in the game. Otherwise, I think Michigan would have won by probably 10 plus points. But still, I mean, you have to take advantage of when another team makes mistakes, and like Alabama certainly did that, and they played to they played to their strengths, and it was certainly like a very
Oh yeah.
well done coaching job there by Saban to be able to really like turn that team around because people thought Alabama would be dead in the water. I mean, like the way, they played against Texas, they lost, and
Mhm.
Milrow threw two picks. They didn't know what to do at quarterback. USF, they lose by no, they don't lose, but they win by two touchdowns, and people are like, this is not great. And then then they go undefeated in the SEC, win the SEC championship over very good Georgia team despite the injuries, and basically we're the betting favorite. Or no, Michigan was
Mhm.
the betting favorite, but the perceived underdog. I mean, pretty much everyone, just as people were like, "Oh, Michigan's going to beat Ohio State," people kind of thought the same thing. Like Alabama's going to beat Michigan. Like it's just too much. There's too much talent. There's too much coaching. Plus Michigan didn't have the track record, but they overcame their demons and they're one step closer to a national championship. And on the other side of that, it's an all
Yeah.
Big Ten matchup. And well, it will be, I guess. Washington's still a member of the Pac-12, but Washington taking on Michigan in the championship. But the second semifinal between Washington and Texas, that certainly just did not disappoint either. I mean, that was a great game. Um, that
Mhm.
one, yeah, I guess because I was rooting for the title, I was a little bit like less into like the start of the Washington Texas game, but it was just an electric start. Both teams, their offense. I mean, Michael Penix Jr. just really like showed out. Like I was just so impressed by like the throws he was making. Jalen Polk catching one and then kind of making defenders miss. And then it's like they're both, and then Texas also was moving the ball with Quinn Ewers very well, getting downfield. And then it was just like, what you expected. Like the first game was going to be kind of more of a defensive like type of battle. This game was supposed to be like a shootout and certainly lived up to that. Um, Penix zipping throws in there. Dudensay making catches, Jalen Polk, of course, then the tipped touchdown. But Texas, like, also has kind of an explosive offense as well. 21-21 going into the second half. I think Washington started to really take over. They got a 10-point lead. I think you got some they stopped Texas, I think, on downs or something like that. And then kind of see some momentum. And then Texas had a ridiculous comeback right at the end of the game. That was a beautiful ball from Ewers to Adonai Mitchell in the corner of the end zone. Just excellent there. And it still kind of felt like too little too late. But then but the injury to Dylan Johnson, as Washington tried to basically run the ball to run out the clock, that was unfortunate. Stopped the game also, caused Texas to get the ball back, and then another big pass to Jordan Winnington, and then the kick catch interference. So a lot, just like everything went wrong for Washington to let Texas back into the game, and then once Texas ended up getting
Mhm.
back into the game, they were like right there, but they couldn't find the end zone because Washington's corner basically knocked the ball away. And I think it was the same matchup on Mitchell too. It was Elijah Jackson forcing the incompletion, so kind of a little bit of revenge there. Just excellent corner play, to be able to knock the football away, and Washington hung on, and that was after a controversial like catch, which I mean I thought it was a catch, but it was like kind of iffy. But like Texas had their chances, but they were not able to find the end zone. But yeah. So what seemed like it was just going to be a Washington win, and they're going to kind of milk the clock and just kind of run it out, and it's going to be too little, too late from Texas. It turned into like certainly the dramatic finish to that game, and yeah, I mean that those are kind of my takeaways from that. I mean, Washington advancing to play Michigan, but what did you think about the second semifinal?
So I wanted Texas to win. I'm a big Kyle Flood guy, so I was a little disappointed.
From Rutgers, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, we still keep in contact, so I kind of wanted them to win because of him. But
Mm.
I was a little disappointed. I mean, but like you said, Michael Penix, he balled out. He had a great
Oh
game. He
my
was
God.
placing balls. I mean, he was feeling it. The one thing though,
Yeah.
I feel like Washington let Texas hang around a little bit like too long. Like I feel like
Yeah.
Washington really could have ran away with it, but they just Texas just did enough like the entire game just to like stay in it. I feel like.
Yeah, they did like basically just enough. Yeah, pretty much just enough to stay in it. Yeah, I felt like Washington was certainly the better team, but Texas kind of did enough. And then the third quarter, I think, was when Washington kind of slowed down their offense and kind of used less tempo, kind of just kind of does what like Rutgers done a lot of that. Like a lot of Big Ten teams tend to do that, kind of milk the clock, kind of a lot of running game, which Dylan Johnson, that's going to be a big blow if he can't go for the championship game. But I mean, they really seem to have control of the game, kind of
Mhm.
going up by two scores there. And then, I guess Texas kind of forced them to a field goal and then suddenly became, a one-score game because Texas also has, pretty explosive offense there. They're able to get downfield and able to get the tying score pretty quickly, honestly. So, I mean, yeah. Yeah, it was pretty competitive game. Yeah, I do feel like Washington definitely was a better team, but they did leave Texas in the game. That could have
Mhm.
ended dangerously. But at the end of the day, I mean, Washington, I mean, they got the job done, and yeah, so that's gonna set up like a Big Ten or feature Big Ten matchup there. Michigan, Washington, two undefeated teams. This is a very interesting game because stylistically the two teams are like very different. It's going to be the clash of styles because it's Michigan's elite defense taking on Washington's elite offense. I mean, Washington can really get past the football. Obviously, we just saw Penix. The other throw that he made was the zip pass to the end zone. That was like to I think Jane
Oh yeah.
McMillan. I mean, that was like that one was so he has heat. He has a deep ball. I mean, I'm a Giants fan. Like, I wouldn't mind if the Giants just pick him in the first round. Like, forget like Jaden Daniels. Like, like
Oh yeah.
he should have really been like the Heisman, but maybe I don't know. I guess they didn't really, he wasn't able to show in time or whatever the reasoning was, or I don't know. The West Coast people fell asleep. I don't know. But I mean, Jaden Daniels played well too, but I mean, it just Penix just seems like he's like the guy. But I mean. Yeah, so it's going to be that type of an offense where they, really test Michigan's secondary. But Michigan, they're going to put a lot of pressure on that offensive line. They're, just like they did against
Mhm.
Alabama. Their corners. Will Johnson, Mike Sainer, still, some of the best in the business. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to see how the corners hold up against Roma Dunze, Jalen Polk, all those guys. And then on the flip side, you have Michigan's kind of more run heavy offense against and I mean they could pass it too, like Roman Wilson, their guys, but I feel like they're less of a deep threat team. They're kind of more methodical. They're like a Big Ten team with more talent, which is basically what Michigan is, honestly. And then going against Washington's kind of like, less, I guess, less good pass defense, especially less good defense in general. But so it's gonna be Michigan. I feel like Michigan's gonna have their way in the trenches, just as they did against Alabama. Probably a bit more, I would say, because Alabama's also a very physical team. But I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. So Michigan, I think, has the advantage in the trenches. I think they have the advantage on their offense. Like they're going to be able to move the ball. Now the question is, if Washington can make this a shootout, I don't know if Michigan can keep up, but at the same time, it's also going to be hard for them to kind of do what they did against Texas. I feel like Michigan, can shut them down and run their offense. I'm not so sure Washington is going to be able to run their offense and kind of force it to be a shootout. But if they do, then I think Washington wins. So a very interesting contrast of styles. Like I said, Michigan's elite defense against Washington's elite offense, and then Michigan's solid offense going against Washington's kind of less solid defense. I would put that way. But I mean, I don't know. I think Michigan has the advantage. I think it's going to be a close one though. Maybe like Michigan wins like 30-27, 30-24, or you maybe like something around that range-ish. But it really all depends on which team can force their style of play onto the other team.
I will say I don't think there's been a game that I could think of recently, like a playoff game, where the styles of play contrast as much as this. I mean,
I know it's going to
Washington
be
wants to
such
throw the
a
ball,
yeah.
like they want to test their secondary. Meanwhile, Michigan's okay grinding out, like we'll take 3 yards, we'll take 5 yards. Washington's like, okay, when can we get a 47-yard gain as quick as possible?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure if Michigan's going to be like, used to that. It's going to be a great preview for next year's Big Ten because we're going to see not only Washington, but also USC, CLA, Oregon. Like, Oregon also plays like a lot like that too. So, like, I mean, even though
Yeah.
Penix and Nix will be gone, like, we're going to see like those, we're going to see a lot of the tough Big Ten defenses. Obviously, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Iowa, like all those types of teams, like you can even include like Rutgers, like the whole conference pretty much like plays in a very similar like that physical Big Ten defense taking on the pass happy Washington Pac-12 style offense, and then kind of the flip side of that is going to be the Big Ten offense, which might struggle against but then the Pac-12's defenses can kind of also be more lackluster. So it's going to be interesting how those Big Ten defenses kind of match up with are the Big Ten defenses going to kind of get flustered by, the pass happy like Pac-12 offenses, or are the Pac-12 offenses going to kind of have a shock when they have to play in the freezing cold and, suddenly like those
Mhm.
long deep shots aren't going to work. Like it's going to be interesting, but this is going to be like a big preview of that because, Washington's probably the best of the Pac-12 offenses. Michigan's probably the best of the Big Ten defenses, and also on the other side of the ball too, Washington's defense isn't bad by any means. I mean, Michigan. I mean, well, in some areas they are, some areas they are, and I mean they have good corners too. And then on Michigan, they can certainly operate their offense to much success on the ground and even through the air. So yeah, definitely going to be an exciting preview for that game.
Yeah, the one thing I want to talk about too, just real quick, is I saw this the other day, and this is the first time we're guaranteed a rematch in the national championship, and then the following season, because they play each other next season when Washington joins the
Yes.
Big Ten.
Yeah.
So that'll be awesome.
Yeah, Michigan going to Washington, going to Seattle. So that, yeah, exactly. And either way, that would have happened even if Texas won too, because Texas comes to Ann Arbor in the non-conference, which that is going to also be a very good game. So yeah, Michigan's schedule is looking
Yeah.
pretty tough next season, honestly, but it'll be so cool to see a rematch of a national championship game as a conference game next year. I think the Big Ten's really kind of, taking over that superiority based on these playoffs at least, because Michigan beat Alabama, and
Oh yeah.
then in a proxy war, Washington, future Big Ten team took down Texas, future SEC team. So that's good for, I guess, Big Ten fans. So I mean, if there's one reason to, I guess, have root for Michigan, that'd probably be a good one. And then same thing for Washington as well. Washington, I feel like has gonna out of like Michigan, Alabama, and Texas, like and Washington, like Washington's definitely the easiest team for neutral fans to root for. I'd say the other three fan bases have their share of being annoying and
Hmm.
stuff. And as a Rutgers fan with a lot of Michigan, Ohio State fans, that's always a tough one. And Penn State, you'd like to see them flood the games, but I mean Texas fans, Alabama fans, they're some of them. I mean, it depends. I mean, no fan base is all bad or all good, but I mean they just tend to be kind of those big brand annoying fan bases. Washington, no one really has beef with them. Unless maybe I guess Oregon,
Hmm.
Texas, I'm sure does now. But I mean, definitely going to be rooting for the Huskies. But it's going to be an interesting all Big Ten affair. I think that's going to bring, that's going to make a lot of Big Ten fans happy, and ESPN probably not so happy. But like, but that's okay, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I guess speaking of ESPN and the New Year's Six, there's the other New Year's Six games, they tended to be kind of lopsided, like one way or the other. I mean, like, we had Oregon
Oh yeah.
blowing out Liberty 45-6, which I feel like everyone knew was gonna happen. Liberty is not the same as, Cincinnati or Tulane even. Like, they played like a very weak out of conference, or not even out of conference schedule in the CUSA, and I knew they would not be a match. I mean, I still support the group of five, I guess kind of like ring for the underdog thing, but like they should definitely be in the playoff in a 12 team. But I mean, but that's still better than this though. Like, a New Year's Six game against like Oregon, who literally lost Pac-12 on, two basically 2 3-point games against Washington. Like that was just a mismatch from the jump. And then I mean, I guess some other ones, Penn State losing to Ole Miss. I mean, a lot of opt-outs really shaped these games. I mean, it's hard to say if Penn State was really, gonna like lose or win because they had a lot more opt-outs. And I guess I had fun spinning
Oh
narratives
yeah.
as a Rutgers fan, be like, oh yeah, Penn State's actually they can't beat a good team. They lose to all the only good teams they play every year, and they couldn't even beat the other good team that loses to all the other good teams. So I have fun like spinning narratives. As someone who like sided with Ohio State, like they lost, but again, opt-outs.
Mhm.
Missouri had a great year. I was definitely very much on the Missouri kind of train. I really liked what I was seeing from them, like
I'm on the
typical.
Mizzou train.
Yeah, I've been seeing that. Yeah, I'm definitely on the Mizzou train. Yeah, great year. Great result there. I mean, winning the Cotton Bowl against Ohio State, even a depleted Ohio State, that's a big accomplishment. I mean, they're gonna be for real. Like that's Mizzou, only Ole Miss. Those Penn State teams like that are really gonna benefit from this 12-team playoff. And I mean, as much as I hate Penn State, I mean, I must say, like teams like that should be able to compete for it all because they do have good, you know, records. They do have good seasons. Just a few teams that they can't beat. Like that shouldn't
Mhm.
ruin their chances completely. And then other ones, where the other, Florida State just absolutely got stomped out by Georgia. That was another game where opt-outs had a huge factor. Um, it really sucks because I mean I really do wish Florida State was able to make. I mean I don't think they should have been the I mean, I don't know, it's hard to say if I think they should have been the playoff or not because like they had the merit definitely, but then at the same time, we all know like Florida State wouldn't have been able to keep up with like any of the three other playoff teams with their backup quarterback, and it just wouldn't have been the same game at all. Like it's just an unfortunate decision that they had to do that. I mean, with that being said, I mean, I would have still liked Florida State have put together a more complete team and have less opt-outs, but that's just the nature of like college football, I guess, and bowl games. A lot of bowl games end up like that, and it just kind of is what it is. So like, you kind of have to decide what to do with all of that. And I think the 12-team playoff is going to solve a lot of those problems because I think every deserving team in a 12 team will be able to get in. If you're having a debate between like 12 and 13, like at some point you got to draw the line, but that's still so much better than 4 and 5. Like so many deserving teams, like Georgia should have definitely had a chance this year. Florida State, of course. I mean, you can keep going, but those two definitely, I think, would have, that definitely should have had a chance to make the playoff. Yeah, I mean, I think those are. I might be missing one New Year's 6 game, but I feel like I covered like yeah, Florida State, Georgia, Penn State, Ole Miss, Ohio State, Missouri, and then Oregon Liberty. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you have any like takeaways on like any of those New Year's 6 games I just mentioned?
Yeah, so like for Mizzou, that was a great game versus Ohio State. I was really happy to see them finish the season with a big win over the Buckeyes. I mean, of course, they had no Kyle McCord because he went to
Right.
Syracuse.
And
So,
no
so
Marvin
I mean, there's a little
Harrison
bit of
either.
asterisk.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Ole Miss versus Penn State, like you said, same thing. Kind of. Ole Miss had a way less. I think they had around the same amount of opt outs actually, but I think Penn State had way more starters that opted out. I think Ole Miss had a lot of
Yeah.
guys in the portal that were like the depth guys. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Georgia absolutely committed a crime against Florida State.
Oh my God. 63-3 is insane.
Yeah. I think they made a statement, but like I think Georgia cared way more about that game than Florida State did. I think that was kind of evident by the fact that Florida State. I feel like they just kind of gave up. I mean, gave up's not the word. I feel like they were just so demoralized by being left out that like it was really hard for them to like.
To
Of
get
course, they
up
had a
for
lot of
that.
opt
Yeah.
outs too, because like I mean, like I said, yeah, like I said, this is the no one wants to play here bowl.
Yeah.
but
But yeah.
um,
Mhm. But I feel like Georgia, like, yeah, like you said, like
yeah, definitely.
yeah, I think they had more of a reason to kind of play in that game, and they wanted to avenge their loss to Alabama, and I think they cared like more about that kind of stuff and sending out their seniors, and with the win and being dominant. Like I think they cared more about that, and it definitely showed up because even when they put in the backups, like they still kept like running up the score, and then it was kind of like it was pretty clear who the better team was and who wasn't, and then
Mhm.
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. If you wanted to say something about like, Oregon Liberty,
No,
I
no,
think
no,
that's
it's
pretty
good.
good. Wait, what?
Yeah, so my second favorite team is actually Oregon. So I was
Mm,
very happy to see Bo Nix end his career with a nice bowl win. Although I really wish like I'm very excited for the 12-team playoff because Oregon should not be playing Liberty in a New Year's Six bowl.
oh yeah.
I'm a group of five guy, but the talent difference is just so like I mean not every team, but like in that game it was very evident. I mean
Yeah.
Liberty has a
Yeah.
great team, they had a great year, but I mean there's just kind of levels to it, like
Yeah. It's like, the best FCS team will, play like a pretty bad FBS team and then people will be surprised that they lose, but it's kind of like, like that's kind of how it is, unfortunately or fortunately. So like, like even like Rutgers, like they took care, like Temple, UW, like some pretty respectable teams on their level, like at least Delaware is, but like, it just kind of works like that. And then same thing with Group of Five, like as good as Liberty was, like, they weren't like really like I mean, American Conference teams, I feel like are kind of closer to that level. Like we saw Cincinnati, I think they were definitely deserving of the 4 team.
mhm.
Tulane, like that was a pretty good team. They were pretty competitive against the Ole Miss earlier this season. Like that I think would have been like the right thing to do. Or SMU, even they got like dominated against, or they lost to Boston College in the bowl game. So I mean,
Mhm.
there's like exactly there's levels to this. Maybe if you want to make it a playoff for the Group of Five, I kind of like that idea, honestly. Like, so they, have a chance
Mhm.
at crowning one. But I mean, I'd still say like in the 12-team playoff, well, yeah, the best Group of Five team should get a shot. But I'd rather, who's the 5 team? It would have been Georgia. But I mean, that would still be a better first round game, or Florida State, or yeah, it'd probably be Florida State against Liberty, and that probably would have been a good one. Like, you know what I mean? That would have been a better. So I would say, like, yeah, keep them in the 12-team playoff, give them a spot, even if it's the 12, whatever the rankings are, let them compete. But I mean, yeah, it's still better than in year six. Like in year six on the national stage against a much better team, like especially when you're putting the CUSA representative in it, it's just like, like that just didn't work out at all. And like, it showed on the field. So I mean, I don't even need to say anything about that. But one bowl game that I was impressed
Yeah,
by. Oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying that I think you made a good point there where like I feel like the 12-team playoff will be better for the group of five because when they're in like I think when they're playing like the number 17 or the number 8 team, it may not look so bad. But when you're playing like, I mean, they played Oregon this year, who's I think around that area. But like, if they play like the number 10 team, then maybe it won't look so bad. But when you get to like the top five FBS teams, they're just
Yeah,
so loaded with depth and talent. I feel like it's so hard for because these good group of five teams, like their starters are probably can compete with these other guys, but their
hmm,
depth guys, when you get to their like second or third corner, they're not
right.
like they're not on the same level.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Now, I guess one bowl game that didn't disappoint, that was not a playoff game, was,
Oh
our
boy.
very own Rutgers, Scarlet Knights against Miami. That was a very good game. And, Rutgers, congrats to them. They've completed phase one of kind of the rebuild here with Chiano 2.0. And
Mhm.
that game, like Rutgers jumped out to I think 14-0 lead, and then Miami came back 17-14, and then Rutgers was able to kind of steal the deal. Once again using special teams. Huge punt block there. Trevor Ebo Cody and Timmy Ward, both who had great stories. Obviously Ward overcoming cancer and all that they've been through, and that was just remarkable to see. Kamanungai, definitely, an absolute beast once again, the bowl game, seventh game over 100 rushing yards. Rutgers
Oh yeah.
defense stepping up, special teams has been elite. Um, yeah, I mean, just a great season for the Scarlet Knights at 7-6. Basically completing like I said, phase one. Now phase two is probably to win some more of those toss-up games. But I mean, without Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan on the schedule next year, I feel like, they have a chance to, yeah, I don't know, potentially win 7, 8 games. There's not too many like guaranteed like losses. Maybe you want to say Washington, USC. I feel like even those might be even USC, UCLA, Wisconsin. Those are probably like the toughest games like all year. There's a lot of, certainly a lot of
Mhm.
winnable and toss-up games
Yeah.
against, Big Ten
Yeah.
West opponents, Maryland, Michigan State,
Yeah. Finally
Washington
getting a
State.
break.
Mhm. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The Rutgers is finally getting a break. I mean, the schedule's not brutal, and they're trending upwards at the right time. I feel like it's a good time to take advantage of what not having a brutal schedule for the first time in forever. I mean, like you said, they play Washington, so that's going to be tough. But you're
Mhm.
not having to play the guaranteed giants in the Big Ten is going to be
Yeah.
really nice for Rutgers.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And yeah, next year, I mean, this year is a great year. They won pretty much every toss-up game that, I mean, if you maybe Iowa and Maryland, if you want to consider those toss-ups, but I feel like Rutgers still the underdog. Michigan State, miraculous comeback win. Northwestern they beat, Virginia Tech they beat, convincingly too. I mean, this team usually they do well out of conference, and then kind of the Big Ten's a little bit of a tougher beast, but they were able to dominate both in the non-conference and even in the conference against teams that they should have been, like Indiana and teams like that. And certainly playing Northwestern, Virginia Tech early on, I think benefited them. But I mean, next year I feel like Virginia Tech again, that's could be another one that they win. Howard, Akron, should get off to they're kind of their usual 3-0 good start out of conference, but then keep the momentum going. There's a lot of winnable games. I'm excited. I mean, a lot of the defensive players are returning, like Longer Beam, so many more, and Aaron Lewis,
Oh yeah.
guys on the defensive line, in the secondary. I mean, I think besides Max Melton is going to the draft, pretty much all of the defensive core is returning. On offense, Kamanunga is returning. That's going to be huge, and yeah, I mean, special teams. I mean, I've been impressed with Jay Patel, I guess fellow Indian American, but 87.5% field goal percentage. Special teams has always been a huge thing at Rutgers from, and the punting, Flynn Appleby filling in nicely, obviously not Adam Corsack, but still a great punter. And then the punt blocks, really being able to seize momentum, kind of, and then, punting, flipping the field, defense, running the ball. I feel like it's going to be a similar team in all those regards, returning a lot of the same pieces. Quarterback situation is an interesting
Mhm.
one. And I did want to talk about that, kind of as we, wrap up here. But with Ethan Kagmanis competing with starting job against Wimsett, um, I mean, Kagmanis slightly better in completion percentage, not slightly, definitely a bit, especially when you account for adjusted completion percentage. I feel like he's definitely more accurate, kind of has less mobility, maybe less upside talent. But I feel like, Wimsett, he had a year to prove himself, and he did have like, a lot of great moments. He had some nice deep balls. He, certainly kind of developed a rhythm there with Dremel, with Isaiah Washington completing passes. He also missed a lot, but he really did change the game as a runner. And that, you can't take that away from him. I mean, like the way he was running against Indiana, against every opponent. I mean, he's a great runner, could improve as a passer, but I feel like either way, like this quarterback competition will, benefit because either, Wimsa will improve on the accuracy issues and then keep, all of his talent as a passer and a runner and get better and improve, be the starter. And then you have a capable, very capable backup in Manis. Or if Manis becomes a starter, um, then which might happen. I mean, then you have a very solid backup in Wimsack, who's basically almost like starting level quarterback, and then you have a more accurate passer, and it's like either way, it kind of benefits Rutgers because you'll have like a higher you'll have two quarterbacks who can play, and you'll have a higher ceiling and a higher floor basically because it'll force improvement from Wimsatt, and if it doesn't, then you'll still have a good backup, and Menace will be more accurate, which can make a big difference in games.
Yeah, so for me, I think that think I can't say his name, so I'm just gonna call him the Greek Rifle, because that's what
Mm,
his nickname is.
yeah, sure. Mhm.
Um, but I think it's a great point. Rutgers needed a guy. I mean, Service is there.
Right.
Shepard is
Mm-hmm.
going to be there, but having a guy that can come in and because I feel like relief duty is different than starting a game. When you come in relief, obviously most of the time the game's not going well. Um, so I feel like you need a guy who has veteran experience that won't be rattled when he comes in and he needs to get the team back in the game. So I feel like even if AK is not starting, he at least brings some experience to where if he comes in and they're down, 10 points, it's not going to be like he's not going to be panicking. He's going to play his game, and he does have a good deep ball. I mean, I feel like there's trade offs between both quarterbacks, right? I mean, neither one. That's why it's going to be a competition.
Yeah.
Gavin has the mobility. Ethan has a little bit of an arm that Gavin maybe doesn't have. Maybe a little bit of an arm edge over Gavin. Some people say maybe not, but um, Gavin definitely is the more mobile guy. But I think Rutgers really needs a guy that can kind of stretch the field a little bit because Kyle Lungai was incredible this year, and they talked. If you watch the playoff games, you saw they were talking about Blake Corum facing 9-man boxes and gaining yards. Kyle Lungai faces a 9-man box pretty much every play.
Yeah. No,
Uh,
yeah, I agree with that. A lot of great points. If you want, we could continue this. But for now, we're gonna have to, call this episode off. But always great talking college football. And yeah, so we will, we'll see you on the flip